Manure man, I could talk about manure all evening long. Horses were the thing that brought me to bees, sort of. Let's just say, horses were the thing that fascinated me for 2/3 of my life. And I still have them, the gift that keeps on taking. And bees are the only other thing I've been involved in that fascinates me like horses did, only they can't kill me as easily. So, I gravitate more to bees now because I'm old. Thank you for coming out to North Central Beekeepers Club. I'm glad to have all of you here as usual. Appreciate seeing you. We had, hey, quiet back there at the raffle table. I know there's bat guano back there. You're just going to have your bat guano. There's a really big bag of bat guano on the raffle table. And if I'd have known that you could bring it for the raffle, I would not want it because I have some in my barn. Maybe you would want to come and get it yourself. Come on in, we're talking bat guano. There's bat guano on the raffle table for those of you that are interested in that. So we did get into our beehives with Kathleen on Saturday. Kathleen Crow, the state apiarist, is here with us on Saturday. John Scott will be here in a few minutes, I think. I was here for the beginning half of that. There was a great turnout. I really appreciate everybody that came. Kathleen, as usual, just completely thorough. And I don't know how many of you get into your hives at the beginning of the spring and you think, oh gosh, it's been all winter and I haven't been in there, but I'm in a hurry, or oh, they don't seem very nice, and oh, I'm just not going to get in that bottom box. I hear that in my head a lot. Oh, I'm just not going to go down that far. They look pretty good, I'm just going to leave it. And I was giving somebody advice over the phone this week, and I just said, you know, first in the spring, you just really need to get down there. You need to know what's going on. Because it can be dramatically different. So Kathleen is wonderful at just methodically taking, that hive was huge, taking down every box, looking through all the frames, really getting a thorough assessment. And you know, you may not do that every time you get in, you probably shouldn't do that every time you get in, but really, first in the spring, you need to do that. So it was a great time with her, and like I said, I left early to go help with 4-H'ers put in packages. So I don't know the end assessment. I believe the big hive that faces north, I have no idea what faces north, and someone asked that, and that was very astute. I believe that hive is queenless, it has no brood, and we had gone through it, left the inner cover on, and gone on to the next hive, which seemed to be very vibrant, and I think the thought was that some brood, etc., was going to be moved over. So we'll get a report from John Scott when he comes and find out how it finished up out there. So we have sustainable apiary coming up. Oh, Bedford, yep, I was at Bedford, it was nice. Master Gardener sale is this weekend.
Saturday.
Yes, ma'am, at Hamilton County Parks Fairgrounds.
Yes.
Yes, from what time?
8 to 3.
8 to 3, and it is literally thousands upon thousands of plants. Many are native.
Yes.
So
13 to 15,000 plants.
there you go.
And they go fast.
They do.
And I don't want to hear any reports of people wrestling for flowers. So just get there, get your stuff, and behave yourselves. All right. Tool Creek Park has an ongoing plant sale, I believe, through their greenhouse. Other than the bat guano, what do we have from there? That is a giant bag of bat guano. So thank you to that provider.
We have 2 hostas. We have 5 1-pound plastic jars, 5 2-pound plastic jars, fresh dozen eggs. We have a Beekeeper Barbie.
Oh!
Barbie!
I've been looking for one of those.
We have an awesome pair of gloves. Tracy's fighting for a high tool.
A J-hook hive tool there. I know there are 3 or 4 of those in my yard somewhere. Super great on
And hives.
And a book.
And a book.
a super DFM and a book. Okay, so lots of cool stuff on the raffle table. June 15th is our Sustainable Apiary Program with Mel Disselcohen as our speaker. Don Tucker is here tonight, and he has been through the Mel Disselcohen twice, and you're coming to do it again. Could you stand up and tell everybody why you would come to your workshop with Mel on the 3rd go-round?
This is Tracy, Scott. It's mine and Tracy's second year doing OTS.
Uh-huh,
It's on the spot queen rearing.
uh-huh.
And it's no small, it's not so much queen rearing, that is, it just, the way you do the hives and everything.
Hive management.
Hive management.
Yes.
Mel's thing is if you'll pay, I've got 31 beekeeping books, and I kind of did this study before I came. And I paid anywhere from $5.99 up to, I think, $106. This one is $75. I got the ABCs of Beekeeping, one of the first editions.
Right.
Got that. But this is $75, and it's probably the best $75 ever spent in beekeeping.
Wow, that's saying a lot, actually.
Mel's will tell you you'll never buy bees again if you follow these ways. And what's that? It is. But
So, right, so Mel, this was one, the whole point is he does not want people to buy bees.
right.
And,
And with the way you split your hives in the spring, and you do an artificial swarm, you take the queen out, you notch the hives, and then so they're 1 into 2, and right after June 21st, summer solstice, you do it again, and you dispatch the queen, and you pinch the queen. And so you go into winter with the young queen that gradually comes out in winter, mass producing and everything. And, it's sustainability. I mean, it's
exactly, which is why we're having him. So, and that's his book, we hold that up again, so
I
that's,
think $35 for the class, for the lecture,
and then he'll have the book there, I'm sure, for sale, and,
Mel is the largest amount of education you'll receive in a very short time, and it wasn't over my head. I'm just a dumbass old country boy from Western Kentucky
okay.
that married an Indiana girl. But it's truly the best education I've received.
It is a mechanical process of sustainability. That is truly what it is. He's very precise about how he does things, and but very worth your time. Thank you, Don.
I'm sorry, when is that, where?
So that is June 15th out at Teeter Organic Farm, which is northwest of Noblesville. That's where we had our Candy Board Social, if you came to that. That is June 15th. You can pay tonight and put in your reservation. That does include lunch, right?
Right, that's a box lunch from McAllister's and water.
Okay. So June 15th. Love to have all of you guys. And we have opened those reservations up to other clubs in the area. So please get your reservation in so we know how many people to for that.
And it's back here.
Oh, Jeanette is taking those reservations. Oh, and you can do your reservation online, I understand. So.
Yes.
Because we're all about technology.
The one housekeeping technology piece.
Yes,
I
technologists.
want to name off names of people whose emails are bouncing when we try to send it. If you're one of the people I call out, we don't have a good email for you. Landon Edsall, Sean Dresser, Andy Simonson, Pamela Rock, Sandra Cromwell, Christy Hannah Hine, Susie Kinsella, Alexis O'Brien, Todd Pruitt, Anthony Ziegler, Jeff Millar, and Todd Golan. If any of you are here and want to get our emails, let us know. We've got a bad email address for you.
Thank you. June 15th is unfortunately also the Purdue Field Day. And we didn't know that when we planned our sustainable apiary event, so you're going to have to pick. But of course, I want to let you know that that is also an option for you on June 15th. That is up at the Purdue Bee Lab out at West Lafayette. There is a new entomologist in charge there, so I have no idea how it will differ this year. Do you have any insight on how that's going to go? But they work hard on making that an in-hive workshop day. It's not a lecture. There is lunch involved, but it'll be in the hive. Take your students, take your mosquito spray. Anything else for me?
Can I pull the Seaboard's meeting?
Absolutely. Come on.
All right, next Monday, 3 or 4 days from now. When is the next Monday? We've got a master beekeeper coming up from Kentucky. John Venom is going to present on reading frames for colony assessments and honeybee diseases and how to deal with them. Okay?
That sounds very worthwhile. Thank you. Absolutely. And
Holiday
Steve
Park.
meets at Holiday Park Nature Center, which is south of 56th Street on Spring Mill, south of, I'm sorry, 62nd and Green Mill, the Holiday Park Nature Center. Well, look, there it is. Holiday Park Nature Center.
It's cut off.
63 Spring Mill Road. All right. So we're going to have Jeanette and Jim. We're going to have their monthly talks, and then we're going to do roundtable discussion tonight. So we're essentially going to make our chairs all, turn into a horseshoe. We're all going to chit chat. So we're looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, what your questions are, what your concerns are, and how we can help you. So, Jeanette, are you ready?
Yes, but Jim is.
Our master gardener in-house, Jeanette.
I can advance for you.
Jim is going to talk on labeling honeybees and safe fair. And before we get to Jeanette, just in case you haven't heard the state legislation regarding keeping honeybees in the state of Indiana did pass last month. Super excited, retroactive. What it says is that no municipality or whatever county, whatever level of government
Governmental agency.
may tell you that you cannot be a beekeeper. Yes, sir. I'm sorry? I don't know, Jim.
Separate contract, doesn't have anything to do with government.
So that is up to you and them.
When you sign an HOA, you're kind of signing away your rights, even though the state gave them to you.
All the more reason to move to the country and be a hobby farmer, I'm just going to tell you. All right, how does really feel? You have no idea.
Jim, do you have?
I was told by my club board that I cannot write a letter to Mayor Fatness and Fisher, so just leave it there.
Done.
Fisher's making it.
I don't know, but man, I'd like to do it.
Okay, tonight we're going to do something just a little bit different for once a week. It's going to be. There we go. What's blooming but not for bees? Okay, so these are some things that I am not telling you, with one exception, do not plant, but do not plant expecting to attract bees. Okay? So first we'll look at what types of blooms do bees like. Okay? And we know they want things that provide pollen or nectar, and we're looking a lot about natives versus hybrids. What's happened in hybridization is that they have hybridized for huge blooms, and they've not thought about bees or pollinators because most people don't actually want the seeds. And of course, in a hybrid, the seeds aren't true to the parent anyway. So the hybrids, if they've been extensively hybridized, they do not have nectar and pollen for the bees. So we look at something like this that are native plants, and the bees would be very happy with that, versus something like that that is absolutely beautiful, may even smell really good, maybe. But the bees don't like it for a couple of reasons on this one. Okay, or 3 reasons. It's hybridized, it really doesn't have much nectar and pollen in it. It's red, bees don't like red. And the way the petals are, the bees really can't get down in there to even explore to see if there's nectar and pollen. So roses are not a good idea. I have read in a couple of places that some of the shrub roses may be good for bees. I have read in a couple of places that they're highly hybridized, so they're not really good for bees. So I found some in researching this, I found some very interesting things on the internet. One guy said that zinnias are not good for bees. Well, we know that zinnias are a great fall food for bees. So I'm not sure what planet he was on, but anyway. Okay, the next thing is that they want things to be accessible. So something like that, they typically like. Something like that, which is a foxglove, they typically don't like. Although they are very capable of crawling up in there, they don't like to do it. So, something that's tubular like that, foxglove, penstemon, things like that, don't plant thinking that you're gonna have bees. Do plant thinking they're beautiful. Okay, then they like to be in groupings. They don't like to have to go 10 feet from one flower to the next. Remember, a honeybee leaves the hive in the morning, and her plan is that she's going to go to one kind of flower until she can't find any more of them. Okay, so if she finds a group of them, she's in bee heaven. If she has to go from here to there, to there, to there, to 2 yards down, she's not so happy about it. So plant things in groupings, like this. Now this is lavender, and this would be bee heaven, as opposed to a single thing like that. Hydrangeas. We've talked about hydrangeas before, so I'm going to get a little bit more specific here. The one on the left is a lace cap hydrangea, and this part of it is great for bees. It has normal flowers, and that they can get nectar and pollen from. This part of it, these big beautiful flowers, are sterile. So, lace cap hydrangeas are typically very good because the most of them are bee food. Mophead hydrangeas, and the ones here are endless summer. They're also limelight and assorted things like this. These actually are the most popular because they have these big, beautiful blooms that are sterile. So if you want to plant the hydrangeas for the bees, go with the lace cap. If you want to plant them because you like them, go with the mophead. As I mentioned before, they don't like red flowers. These are what are called geraniums. They are actually pelargoniums, but we commonly call them geraniums. They're what you see all around for the race and that sort of thing. Couple of reasons. They're red, the bees are not attracted to them. They're hybridized. They have very little nectar and pollen, and they have virtually no scent to attract anything. We talked about daffodils before. Daffodils are beautiful, wonderful spring plants. Some of them are flat like that, so you can think, gee, the bees would love them. Again, highly hybridized, hardly any nectar or pollen. I have daffodils all around my place. I started out with, I think, 25 one year, and now I'm inundated. I pulled and pulled and pulled. They are so hybridized that I hardly ever see a seed pod on a daffodil. And the people who raise daffodils say they are so easy to cross because you can do it by hand and you don't have to worry that some bee's been there first, because nothing comes to them. They do have some nectar and pollen a little bit, but as I mentioned before, nothing bothers the daffodil. Deer won't eat it, cattle won't eat it. Moles, squirrels won't eat it. Now, a squirrel will sometimes dig one up and take it a little distance and say, yeah, and drop it down, so you'll have a daffodil living over there that you know you have there. So daffodils are great if you want them for spring color. If the critters are really hard on your other things like crocus and hyacinths and whatever that tend to be deer candy and bull candy, then go with daffodils, but do not expect ever to see a bee on them. I've never seen a bee on one of mine. Marigolds. Again, there are some kinds of marigolds that are flat and you would think would be good. Bees will go to them if they really can't find anything else. But they do have an odor that bees don't seem to like. Marigolds are often planted in gardens with other things to repel insects. Bees aren't exactly repelled by them, but they certainly are not attracted to them. And here's my personal pet peeve. I don't know if you noticed, but this year, when the first trees were blooming, if you lived through any kind of untilled field, you saw all of these white trees there. Okay, a little bit about Bradford pears. Bradford pears, when they first came over, I believe it was in 1964, they knew that their branches were very weak and fragile. That has a lot to do with, see how straight up they are? So you have a real sharp V here. So in a storm, they'll just break right off. The wood is very stiff. Okay, so they knew that. But they said, oh, okay, well, these things are sterile, and the shape is good for neighborhoods. And so all of the developers said, we're planting Bradford pears. Some of them even specified that you had to have a Bradford pear in your front yard. Okay. Roll forward a little bit. They thought, oh, Bradford pears are good, but they do have some problems. So, oh, by the way, Bradford pears do not attract bees. Bees do not like them. And I was going into Panera when these things were in bloom, and they had some blooming there. They really smell bad. They stink. They were developed, you know, I don't know exactly where they came from, but they were developed, they came here in '64. I would assume that they're probably Asian. Okay, so the Bradford pears in '64 were sterile. Crank forward, he said Bradford pears are good. Let's develop a pear that addresses some of the Bradford's pear problems. So they did things like Cleveland Select pear. Looks just like a Bradford pear, but it's a different variety. Well, the problem is that yes, Bradfords are sterile with other Bradfords. Bradfords are not sterile with other calorie pears, which is the whole genus of them. They are not sterile with Cleveland Select. They do produce berries. The birds don't really like them, but they'll pick them and eat them and distribute them everywhere. And so they're kind of taking over the world. Now, in addition to that, they revert back to the original calorie pear, which had thorns on it about yay long. And it will actually go through the tire of a John Deere tractor. And then they grow out from their roots so that you get a whole grouping of them. And with all of these thorns everywhere. And so they are really nasty. They come out early, they stay late, and they drive out our native trees. So if you have a Bradford pear, I would highly recommend that you prune it about 2 inches off the ground. Yeah, and then after you prune it, you have to use some sort of a chemical, and I am saying with caution Roundup, but you have to put that on the stem, otherwise it will branch up like mulberries do it too. Just keep branching up all around. So you cut it off and then you treat the stump with a chemical so that it kills the roots of it. Okay, and that's what I have for you. Any questions on this?
Now, there were actually several organizations that were giving you, if you brought in and showed that you destroyed a Bradford pear, were giving you like a sapling or some type of tree replacement.
Yeah.
Because they want you to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah. I know Jim recently pruned his red repair perfectly.
Did you
Really looks good now.
Are sugar pears the same species or are they a different?
Regular pears,
Yeah, just a sugar, I always call them a sugar pear.
but they have pears on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're different. These, as I said, when they first developed them, they were sterile. And so then when they developed them and kind of brought in something else into them, they're no longer sterile. So, but regular pears are not. But actually, Bradfords will cross-pollinate with your pears, won't bother your pears, but when they get their seeds, they're not sterile anymore. They can cross-pollinate with any pear.
And then what kind of blooming here in Central Indiana right now?
I'm sorry,
What kind of blooming here in Central Indiana right now?
what's blooming right now? Well, that, which looks like it's probably a hawthorn tree. And they're blooming. My husband's peach trees just stopped blooming. So most of them, horse chestnuts. Yeah, horse chestnuts are blooming. The black locusts have not started yet. The catalpas are after that even. And then, of course, all of the annuals that people plant are blooming. In the fields, you may see the wild mustard, which is a good plant for bees.
The wild mustard is yellow.
The wild mustard is yellow. There's some of it right over here in one of the beds.
Do bees want yellow mustard?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Because I got 2 big fields.
Yeah.
Dogwood trees, are they blooming?
I'm sorry?
How about dogwood?
Dogwood, bees don't really care that much for dogwood. They will work in some, but not a lot. They would prefer things like the hawthorn or fruit trees or other blooming plants. Another thing that you might see in the fields now is you'll see a field that looks purple. Okay, that's a fun thing. It's called a purple dead nettle. And we talked a little bit about it last year, but it's the little teeny thing, right? And it's a very interesting thing because not all of the flowers have nectar and pollen in them. Or not all of them have nectar. All of them have pollen, but not all of them have nectar. If you think about it from a plant's point of view, it's a lot of energy to produce nectar. Okay, so these guys, not every flower has nectar in it, but enough of them do to keep the bees coming. So the bees go over to this flower, get the pollen, and say, oh, no nectar here, go to the next one. No nectar here, go to the next one, say, jackpot. And so in doing that, they have actually pollinated. They're fun little weeds. Okay, anything else? Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on into the world of rabid controversy. So even if you're not a part of this issue, I'm trying to take what is essentially a legislative discussion and make it into something that's got a little bit more drama to it. If you have been around beekeeping, and if you've been around beekeeping clubs for the last 4 or 5 years, you will know that selling honey in Indiana has gone through a number of interpretations and iterations as to what can and can't be done, who it can and can't be done by, what they can do with what they've done by, and who they can sell it to. And this has been a little ambiguous, to say the least. And a lot of that controversy has resulted in the fact that food laws are not simple and easy to understand in general. And we have a number of different regulatory agencies involved in managing it. So the Beekeepers of Indiana early this, or actually it was late last year, set two legislative agendas for the year. One was SB 520, which became SB 529, which was the prohibition against prohibiting beekeeping, which passed recently.
Yay.
And we're all very excited about that. There was a bizarrely large amount of work in getting that law passed, including a lot of appearances before the House and Senate.
Thank you, Jim, and your co-workers.
Absolutely.
Senator Grooms and Representative Clear were very much behind that, so if you have anything to do with their districts, please let them know that you appreciate that. But one of the other things was we wanted to resolve this issue of bottling laws in the state of Indiana for small producers of honey. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here, because this all kind of comes to a head at the state fair of all places. So,
We didn't talk about getting people to sign up, and we need to do that. So we
well, you can do it after I'm done.
I know.
It doesn't fit in my
No,
presentation.
I'm just saying, so we can talk about how fun it is.
Look here. What's right here? What's right here?
Fun, fun, fun.
Our day. Okay.
There's smiles on our faces, look at
All
that.
right. So, our state organization, the Beekeepers of Indiana, has a large booth in the Ag building at the state fair. And it's very well attended, it gets a lot of traffic, and it is operated by various clubs. So each club takes a day or two to operate that booth. We have a day, it is Tuesday, August 13th. See Tracy to sign up.
Really fun.
We need to recruit people, and it is a great time. We recruit people usually for half-day shifts. And at that booth, we sell a wide variety of Indiana honey and hive products like soaps and pollen and beeswax and other things. In addition to having a big observation hive there to talk to people about, having some kids' activities, there's a lot going on.
Honey ice cream.
And the honey ice cream, which is only available at the state fair.
Only available.
Only available at the state fair. So, why do we bother selling honey at the state fair? A couple of reasons. One is that, oddly enough, a lot of people don't know a beekeeper to buy honey from, and they want to buy local honey. And they have a chance at the state fair to come by and to look at all these different honeys and taste them. And a lot of people I've talked to over the years say that they pick up their entire year's honey supply at the state fair. So this is convenient for them, and they enjoy doing it. In the process, all those honey sales raise some money for the Beekeepers of Indiana. They keep, I believe it's 10%, something like that. About 10% of all the honey that's sold, the monies that are sold on honey, goes to the Beekeepers of Indiana. The rest goes back to the person who brought the honey in. And the clubs who are manning the booth, it's a fundraiser for them because they get most of that 10%, I think about half, goes to the club who manned the booth. So last year our club made $400 for the one day we spent manning the state fair. So it's a little bit of a microeconomy, and it works pretty well.
The state fair keeps the money too.
Oh yeah, the state fair gets their cut, and the governor gets his cut. Everybody gets a cut. But the question comes up then, who can sell their honey at the state fair? Who can bring their honey into the booth and have it sold there? Because it is a great venue to sell a lot of honey if you're looking to get rid of a bunch of your honey. So the rules that are set up and have been traditionally is you have to be a TBOI member first. You have to be a member of the state club. You also have to be signed up to volunteer to help at the booth for at least one shift. And here is the new one, right here. You must be a licensed honey producer to sell it. Okay? That means you have to fit into one of these two categories. You either have to have a retail food license, or you need to have a wholesale food establishment license. Okay? In the past, I will tell you, and this is where the controversy resulted from, most of us, small-time producers, sell our honey to our friends and neighbors, right? That's how we get rid of our honey. If I generate 100 pounds of honey in a year, I have no trouble unloading it on all of my friends and neighbors, right, Z? I mean, yes, you can saturate the market pretty quickly with local honey. And that is covered under the food-based, the home-based vendor law, which essentially says you can make stuff in your home, you can make food in your home, you can sell it face-to-face to people at places, well, this varies a little bit, this is where we get into the controversy. Some counties say that that is allowable to sell it at farmers markets, others don't. You can sell it for a roadside stand, but the idea behind the law was essentially aimed at farmers markets and roadside stands, but always face-to-face sales, okay? Now, if you take 10 cases of honey into the state fair at the beginning of the fair and drop it off, and it's there for the whole period of the fair being sold, you are not selling it face-to-face, right? Somebody else is selling it on your behalf. And this has created problems with the Marion County Health Department. Now, to be fair to them, other county health departments have raised issues with it as well in farmers markets. Specifically, I know there have been issues here in Hamilton County and some others. But the issue is that as a home-based vendor, you're really not a licensed food producer, okay? So, this crisis, which came to a culmination right before the opening of the fair last year, was resolved with a compromise. Marion County Health Department said, fine, we'll let it go for one more year, okay? Okay, we'll let it go for one more year, but next year, y'all are going to be licensed. Okay, so here we are at next year. So a committee of us from the Beekeepers of Indiana went to the legislature and said, we would like a law that essentially deregulates the production of honey for small honey producers. And the legislature said, you guys need to talk to the state health department and work this out before you come bother us with this thing. So we sat down with the state health department. Very nice group of folks, very helpful group of folks. And they said, you know what? You don't need a law to deregulate honey. We have something on the books already that will satisfy all of your requirements. Because our requirements were rather simple. It had to be something that was affordable and reasonable for a small producer to do, yet would meet the requirements of having a food production license. And this is what we ended up with. So, what kind of food producers and sellers are allowed? Okay, it's these two basic categories. A retail food establishment is the typical food producing license that a lot of people currently have. Bill, where are you back here? Bill Beaver? Yeah, you've got one of these, don't you? You've got a retail food license. Bill wants to bottle his honey. He's got a honey house. It's inspected. He's got all of the equipment in there, and he produces honey, and he labels it, and he can sell it to anyone, right? You can sell it wholesale, you can sell it retail. This is the route many people go. A couple of things to note about that. This is regulated by the county. So what county are you in, Bill?
Howard.
Howard County. So Howard County gives you your permit. Yep, okay.
And they inspect it
And they inspect it.
twice a year.
Yep. Huh?
When they come,
Twice a year.
and you know absolutely nothing about what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Not a clue.
Hard to imagine a governmental program set up that way. Okay, so when we went to talk to the State Board of Health, they said, you know what? We've got this program on the books that none of you are using, but you could if you wanted to, especially if we made it easy for you to do, which is what they've done. Okay? And this program, the wholesale food establishment, is set up to regulate the production of prepackaged foods. Okay? In other words, not a restaurant, not something you're going to give to somebody to consume, but a prepackaged food that is sold for later consumption. Okay? It is not regulated by the county. It is regulated by the Indiana State Department of Health. Okay? So, this supersedes the county issues. Okay? Just fair warning here, I'm going to give Barry 10 minutes to come up and correct all of my errors that he has.
Minding my own business.
Have I said anything desperately wrong yet? No. Okay. Well, hang on, I probably will. All right, so what are the advantages of going with the wholesale food establishment license? There are quite a few, actually. First of all, it immediately allows you to do third-party sales. So it doesn't have to be face-to-face anymore. I can sell to you, you can sell to him, he can sell it to someone else, and that's the final consumer. So no problem with third-party sales. It is regulated by the State Department of Health, which means you don't have to worry about county-to-county variability in the interpretation of what can or cannot be done under a particular type of permit. As long as the county recognizes that the State Board of Health license is adequate in their county, and the State Board of Health has sent some publications out to the local counties to help them understand that. We'll see how that works. But you avoid that county-to-county variability, and the State Department of Health has spent time sitting and listening to us, talking about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, the fact that honey is a low-risk food, And they have given every indication that they want to cooperate and help us be successful in this. Okay? Which is unfortunately not always the case with every department we deal with. And lastly, the license is very easy to apply for. It is a one-page application. That's it. It's not even a full page. And there is no fee. Okay? So this is essentially fill out a form and send it in. And they told us they would be processing these probably within 30 to 60 days. Okay. All right, what are the downsides to it? Well, there are some. The biggest one is you probably need to operate as a business if you don't do so now. Okay? If you're just selling honey out of your back pocket, you know, and sticking the money in your pocket and walking away, that's probably not going to work. I don't know that the State Department of Health cross-references its files with the State Department of Revenue. Do you know if they do that, Barry?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Not yet.
Not yet. But part of the form is asking you what your business name is and so on. And so you probably will have to treat your honey production and sales as a business. That may be more effort than some people want to go to. It just depends on what level you want to go to in your operation. Also, because you're selling and licensed for prepackaged product only, you cannot give out samples. If you go to a farmer's market with your wholesale food license, you can sell bottles of honey all day long. Or your wife can sell bottles of honey, or your neighbor can sell them for you. Anyone can sell them for you. But you can't give samples. That requires a, what kind of license? Retail, is that a retail license?
Retail.
Yes. Requires, which you can get for one day. I mean, you can get a one-day license if you want to do that. But it's a different kind of license. So you can't give samples out.
Can you still do it face-to-face though?
Home-based vendor?
No, I think I saw something in the guidance I was looking at today that said there cannot be beef and pork.
You can't do both.
You can't do both.
Okay.
You got to be one or the other.
But my wife.
Your wife can do whatever she wants. And of course, the premises you're using are subject to inspection by the Department of Health. Right? That's may or may not be a downside depending on how difficult it is to get in and out of your compound. Okay. So, what do you need to qualify for a wholesale license? Primarily, what you need is a clean place to process the honey. In the guidance documents, they use the term honey house. Okay? A dedicated facility is best. Bill, you've got a dedicated honey house, don't you?
Not really. What I do, I take my honey, I put it in Hive butter, and I transport it and my extractor to a record. And then I call the Department of Health 48 hours prior to that, and they come to do an inspection.
Okay.
And they come in and they look at my stuff and sign my permit, and they leave, and they never watch me extract anything.
But you've got a dedicated facility that you're using for it.
Right, I have a retail.
Okay. This was one of the real stumbling points we had in talking with the State Department of Health, because we said, look, the average small producer, okay, doesn't have the money or the resources to have a dedicated facility just for bottling honey once a year. And they said, you know what, we can work with you on that. And very based on our last discussion, I did go back and reread the regulation, and there is a two-word clause that seems to make it work. It says honey house or it says separate room or adequate facility. And it's that adequate facility. That's a lot of gray area. And what they said was, and here's, I'm going to give you the gist of it. I didn't write this on the slide because I don't want anybody coming back to me later and saying, you said this. Turn the video off for a second. Because what we said was, look, could you bottle honey in your kitchen under this law? And they said, well, yes, but, okay, to meet the provision, the spirit of the law, the room that you're using for honey bottling, for honey processing, cannot be used for any other purpose, okay? And you can't have animals in it, you know? You can't be doing food preparation, other food preparation in it. It needs to be just used for that. So, while you're processing honey, your kitchen becomes your honey processing room. That means you're not preparing food in there. It's clean before you start. It's clean when you end. You don't let the dog and cat in. Okay? In other words, you treat it as a separate facility while you're doing that work. Okay? And they said they would interpret that as acceptable under the statute the way it's written. So that's the key component for most of us. Okay. The other thing you have to do, of course, is meet the labeling requirement, which is not very difficult.
What's the back of the inspection? I mean, how do you know when you inspect?
You have to give them a heads up, just like Bill does. So if you say, I'm going to plan on bottling honey a week from this Saturday. If you want to inspect me, come out and do it. It's likely they won't. You should get, when you get your license, you should get information from them on how to go about arranging for an inspection.
So you should bottle honey on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Does it cover extraction and bottling, or just bottling?
The law just says processing. Traditionally, it has only covered bottling. Okay. Now, an important distinction here too, and I'll bring this up. If you're licensed as a wholesale food vendor, okay, historically under the Home-Based Vendor Act, you only produce honey, nothing else, just pure honey. Under the wholesale, you can actually produce flavored honeys. You can produce other honey food products. Your license is not exclusive to just pure honey. So it gives us a little bit more latitude than you have under the Home-Based Vendor law. The labeling has, somebody say something? Yeah.
Our company has a wholesale license.
Yep.
They don't care if you extract it in your backyard or
Yeah.
anything.
Just where you bought it.
They just want to see where you process it.
Yep. So your label has to have your business or your name on it, address, weight, and an accurate statement of the ingredients. Nothing shocking there. But some people are very sensitive and don't want their name or address on a bottle that's going who knows where. That's something you do have to meet, a requirement you do have to meet.
Hey Jim, this goes to a comment you just said. What does processing mean? You can extract it somewhere else, or it's bottled?
Putting it where, when customers, the final process.
Packaging.
Yeah, packaging.
Packaging, or if you were adding any ingredients, the blending of the ingredients, that sort of thing. Okay, just to wrap up here, I want to pull up the TBOI website. Paul's going to pull that up for you. I'm going to show you where to get more information.
Wasn't there something in the labeling about having the date that it's bottled?
It's not a requirement.
Not a part.
That was a requirement
Prior, yes.
One trick I use when I get ready to extract is I get cold frame, put them in the hive, or take it, my extractor down. One trick I found, I didn't want to go in the east bit of operation, mess everything up. So what I did, I said, when are you closed? They said, well, we close at 6 o'clock Sunday evening. Okay, that's when I'm coming to my extraction. Nobody's in each other's way. So I contacted the Department of Health 48 hours prior to that and told them what I was going to do. They came the first time, looked at my equipment, signed my permit, read the bottle of honey, and they left it. They're white. The second time I called her to do an inspection, she said, well, now, nobody showed up, you just go ahead and do what you want to do. And so basically, I guess I learned the trick. Government employees, not keeping birds, don't like to show up at 6 o'clock on Sunday evening to work.
There you go. All right, if you go to the Beekeepers of Indiana website, okay, which all of you should be familiar with, right up here is a tab that says Regulation Documents. Click on that, please. And you'll see here information on selling honey. Go first to the wholesale application form. Suspense bills. There it is. That's the whole thing. That's it. Okay, it's one page, and most of that is where you live. Okay, go back.
Just a second.
Right there, X in the middle, top middle.
Yeah.
Is there a business name on there, Jim? I can't read that.
It does. It says here, legal name of establishment or doing business at.
So you really have to have a business license, or not?
You could be doing business as your own name. I mean, that's a.
Did we get lost here?
Yeah, the pop-up wouldn't go away.
There we go. And the other one, guidelines on selling honey. This is a great document. The Indiana State Department of Health put this together, and it walks you through all of the legal aspects of applying applying for and receiving a wholesale license. There really, I can tell you, reading through it, there are not any real tricks. It just goes through all of the legalese and explains all of the statutes. But stop right there. Let's see. Go up a little bit, Paul.
Up or up?
I'm sorry. Previous pages. Stop down a little bit. I want to get right in here. Let's see. Look. Okay, here we go. Stop right there. This may include a room such as a garage or other room, which can be made inaccessible from rooms that are otherwise living or sleeping space of a residence. So that's really the level of effort that you need to achieve. Close the doors. Close the doors. Okay, so if you're interested, take a look at this document, give it a read. It's actually pretty well written, but that information is available to you on the TBOI website. So any other questions before we wrap this up?
You talk about being regulated and having a license. What's the downside if you get caught doing otherwise?
Barry, what's the downside? Well, first of all, you can't sell at the state fair. You've got to
Well,
show
I
your
mean,
license.
yeah, other than that. Yeah.
Nothing. What's the downside to just ignoring all this?
Well, there's really not honey police, so.
Let's go to a farmer's market.
Let's go to a farmer's market.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose one issue could be liability.
You know, you're talking about selling it to your neighbors and your friends
Yeah.
and everything like that. And if you do that, and they are attracted to you for some reason and want to get to you, what's the downside? That's what I'm asking.
The downside of putting your name on the label.
Well, and just in order to have them sell it.
If you're just selling it face to face, you don't have to worry about any of this. This is really aimed at those people who are producing more honey than they can reasonably sell face to face, but not so much that they're a honey baron like Mr. Beaver in the back, who's making his fortune selling honey. It's at the people in the middle who are producing a couple of 100 pounds, maybe a little bit more, and are looking for a way to reasonably process and sell it without going to the expense of a dedicated bottling facility. That's really what this is aimed at.
Yeah, so you touched on, and this kind of off to the side a little bit, you're talking about operating as a business. I would think that if you're selling honey, particularly at events like this, at farmers markets, and kind of retail, that kind of gets you out of the home-based vendor, that you probably, if you're acting like a business, you say you're a business, you probably should be considering yourself a business and get product liability insurance and do all those things. It's a little bit of pain, it's not really expensive, but if you're doing that, it's not hard to get $1 million in product liability insurance. It's like $250 a year. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, you better do this. You better consider that, because it doesn't take too much for somebody to say, oh, you sold me something that made me sick, and So that's my recommendation. If you're acting like a business and you're doing all this and getting licenses and getting inspections and putting yourself down, business name, doing business as, I would think you might want to consider that. That's just my opinion. But.
Yeah. How does sales tax figure into any of that?
You don't have to pay sales tax on the sale of honey.
At the state fair.
Anywhere. As long as it's just honey.
Yeah, now if you're selling lip balms, soaps and those things, then you still have to get your retail sales certificate and all that business.
The only way I see is personally that a person selling a few bottles of honey now and then, bringing on somebody else's territory at the farmer's market. Say they use permission week. So you have become a competitor against your other beekeepers. The beekeepers will turn on you in a heartbeat. Right? So they will eliminate the competition.
Vicious crowd.
I see that happen all the time in farmers markets.
So selling honey at the state fair is it's fun. It's a wonderful way to see a huge variety of honey. It's fun to have there's just a great novelty to it. You may never become even a sideline producer, but to take, 50 pounds of honey to the state fair and sell it is an opportunity to sell to people that you'll never reach in your local market. So, you do give a cut to the state organization that's providing the venue for you, but at the same time, you get your name out and for sale to a much larger
But
market.
to be very clear, you have to have your wholesale license for money to the fair to sell it this year. You'll have to show your license.
You will have to show your license. You'll have to show either a retail license or a wholesale
My
license.
guess is the booth this year is going to have a fraction of what I'm
It already has suffered that impact last year because of the confusion and the much stricter regulation. So this year, I think they're trying to get all the information out early enough that the beekeeping population will rebound, and I would venture to guess that you may be right. But at the same time, it is what it is, and there is always a level of regulation that is required for a food product, and that's just how it's going to be.
So we should bring 100 pounds instead of 50?
Absolutely.
Don't give away any of your friends' pounds.
The state organization sets the price. In the past, it was $8.75 a pound, I think. So yeah, they set your price. And again, it's not for everybody, and I get it. You could sell it for the full amount to the people that you're selling it to here. So why cart it all the way down there, sell it safer? Again, it meets different needs for different people, and what's good for one isn't always good for the other.
Still allowed to sample the honey?
There's always been a sample table. I believe that will continue.
Okay.
Yes, what they are saying is you yourself cannot provide samples.
You're doing a farmer's market.
Right. But at the state fair, I think there will still be a sample
As a
table.
home-based vendor, now if you get
Right.
retail, and you can do something.
Right, you can't sample if you're a
You gotta
home-based
get all the
vendor.
cans.
They're requiring you to have a wholesale license, and there will be samples at the state fair.
And the booth is very busy, people love to
The
come
booth is
through.
very busy,
People
and
come through year after year, they say, we never miss this. They bring their children, their grandchildren. We did a little, they provided us with a project.
right,
that we did with kids.
there's a kid craft that you do there, and you have to provide that. We provide a speaker to speak on their stage, give a little 10 or 15-minute talk. So let me just say, we're going to have a 5-minute break here where we're going to rearrange the chairs, we're going to sell raffle tickets, we're going to sign up for sustainable apiary in the back. We'd love to get that finalized. If you are interested in working at the state fair, I'm going to start accumulating that list. The shifts are from 9 to 2 and from 2 to 9, I think is what we've done in the past.
9 to 3 and 3 to 9.
9 to 3 and 3 to 9, even better. And we need at least 6 people on each shift, and it's actually a lot of fun. You do not have to be an expert beekeeper. Any of you that have sat through one of these meetings is already an expert compared to the population of people that are going to show up from the state fair. So there is always something that you have to offer, and if you don't know it, you can certainly turn to the beekeeper next to you and ask that question. We have an observation hive, we have all kinds of things going on. So it is an enjoyable day, and I would love to have any of you sign up to do that. So let's take a 5-minute break, see the raffle table, the sign-up table. We're going to rearrange the chairs and come back to have a round table discussion where we're going to talk beekeeping.
Sorry.
The Lynn's were telling me at the end of the hive inspection with Kathleen that you didn't move anything over to the queen dead hive, and
We'll never
we
see
kind of don't know what's going on.
That's the thing. So one of the hives, here. Well,
Come on in.
No matter where it's at, somebody will have to look at my data.
We need a turntable.
So yeah, with the lazy citizen. This is supposed to be a
Okay.
Here. I'm going to stand right here
Okay.
because I don't like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just go
All
ahead.
right. So last year we had a hive, and it was about that tall, and it had about 5 bazillion bees in it. So Tracy and I just did functionally a walkway split.
A lazy man split.
Lazy man split, and in the new hive, it stuck. And they had lots of honey. They went in because I was lazy and didn't pull it because Barry didn't help me. So they had lots of honey. They went into the winter with lots of honey. And then they became a problem child hive because they fell over. So in the middle of the winter, it crashed over, and Barry and Ann put it back together. And then whilst crashing over, it gained a mouse.
Oh.
And so when we went out to look at it, you know, the first time the bees were coming in and out of a hole in the top. And so when we went into it, that was because the first two deeps, there was a mouse nest in one deep, and they just didn't even want to be close, so they weren't in the second deep. So they were, she was laying up in the supers. So we cleaned out the nastiness, and we put the two supers with the brood in all stages of larva at the bottom, and gave them another deep on top, and left them with super of honey. And then when we came back to the last meeting, I don't know who was here with me at the last one. Mr. Beaver was here, and we had cap brood, everything looked dandy. And then Bill must have killed the queen. Or something.
You killed the queen before we got there.
Huh?
You killed the queen the previous time.
No, because we wouldn't have had eggs. You killed it. Well, nonetheless, see, we don't know. That's the thing, we don't know what's going on with it. But there were queen cells, but there was no capped brood, and there were just a few eggs. So,
Oh, and there were multiple eggs and cells.
yeah.
But they weren't on the side. They weren't on the side. She never said laying worker.
Yeah.
She said the eggs were on the bottom, and there were 2 eggs in a cell, 2 eggs in a cell, 2 eggs in a cell. So she said there must be some kind of problem, but she never said laying worker. So then she went to the other hive and started going through that, and that's when I had to leave. So
Right, so basically what she said with that hive was,
well, she was waiting to see if there were going to be either queen cells to move over.
there were queen cells in that hive.
Capped.
Not capped, but they were wet.
Oh.
So there were queen cells there, so it's like, that was where she said,
And that's what Ed and Cindy said, that we're just going to have to, or Ed and Chrissy said that we're just going to have to wait a week.
have to wait. Yeah. It's a way to see the other hive rocking and rolling.
But not swarm level.
No, there were. She went down to the bottom. She didn't go through the bottom deep. We found the queen.
We did.
In the alpha hive.
Okay.
And that hive is just textbook. Beautiful.
We did ask her about rotating the hive that's facing north, about adjusting its orientation, and she said we can definitely do that just a little bit at a time and get it facing a better direction. So we do need to work on that.
So we continue to learn.
So are we going to try to get into it in the next week then?
I have no idea.
Okay then.
Why are you?
It's facing north. I don't remember.
Everybody says south.
Because we're a bunch of, it should,
Bill
somewhere
did.
from, anywhere from, it should be facing anywhere from east to south, anywhere in that quadrant, and honestly, when we split it all those many moons ago, I've slept since then, I can't remember.
It's not the one that fell over, is it?
Sometimes we're just volunteers and we have to put it on the stand that's available, and there's a lot of shade out there, and so honestly, I can't tell you, but we probably should change it to a new direction. And who knows? Yeah, so we need to get work on that. And before
I didn't hear that.
Oh, he said maybe it was facing south and it fell over when we set it up wrong, but I think it was always facing.
No, it's always facing north.
So, one more thing, Leroy had these new gadgets on Facebook, and I asked him to bring them in because I'm a gadget person myself. So tell us what you brought.
Okay.
It's show and tell at Bee Club.
Yeah, so all these are ideas I got off the internet, and like all of us here, I'm trying to do things easier, quicker, cheaper. And so this is a mini mating nuke. David at Barnyard Bees, if you're on the internet, look at YouTube videos, he has like 1 million of them. And he does these, and the way they work, they're just normal frames, deeps. And so what you can do is watch his video and you'll see the whole way to do it. But his basic process, he pulls one frame that's got brood, honey, and pollen, puts it in here, along with one empty frame, puts a queen cell in, leaves it alone, and she'll get mated, come back, and fill out the other frame, and then you have a lot more space in here. Last year I tried the little styrofoam mini mating nukes, and oh, they are so small. and so sensitive. I mean, you have to stay right on top of them or else, a few days late and they're full and the bees are leaving.
So for new beekeepers, when you're putting a queen cell in there and then you're waiting for her to get back after being mated, that amount of time is?
For a queen cell, when it hatches, it'll go out for 3 or 4 or 5 days, typically come
Right,
back.
but the queen cell is 18 days, 16,
You get a right queen cell.
Yeah, if you get a 10-day queen cell.
plus the time she has to harden off and then go out to fly and then
Yeah.
come back. So we're talking in
2 weeks.
2 weeks
Yeah.
time, okay.
Yeah. And you will also do some of these where you just put in a frame with young eggs and let them make their own queen.
Why
But
wouldn't
that's-
you do this with the 5 frame?
It takes a lot more resources. With this one, you're going to take one
One
frame,
frame of brood, I see what
one
you're saying.
frame of brood out of your hive, and it's real easy. You have a hive, you can easily pull 2 or
Okay,
3 frames of
so
brood.
that's something you can make it up.
Now,
Yeah.
now he's down south, right?
He is in Georgia.
Yeah, so that might be different.
He talks about overwintering in these,
Wow.
but that's Georgia.
In Georgia.
So,
Yeah,
But he does stack them, he puts them together.
sure.
okay. So the other thing kind of goes with it, so these I've seen Ian Stifler out of Canada. He uses this aluminized foam stuff, inner covers. And last couple of years I've been using canvas inner covers. I really like the canvas inner covers. And this year I have these on about 2/3 of my hives.
Inside the outer cover.
No inner cover, just this.
Telescoping and then that.
Okay.
So you put this on, and the beauty of it is, you put it on like this, and within a week, the bees have glued it down. So if you go in to check your hive, you take off the top cover, and you just look back and see how many frames are full of bees this way. Or if you have a hive feeder inside, you can lift up the side and pour in your honey,
Without
or
burning the whole thing.
your sugar water. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
He also notches his, the guy online, he notches the center, so he can do a top feeder as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
And you can come whatever size you want, so you can get them for nukes or this one.
Okay.
And these you can get at Lowe's.
Yeah.
25 foot for $16. We'll make 15 of these.
Nice.
So it's pretty easy.
You should bring some in for the auction the raffle next time.
What? So you know what? How many of you contacted us about mold on your inner covers after winter? We have quite a few people. I mean, I'll bet we're not going to have mold growing on that stuff.
I don't know. I know.
No, but I think it retains moisture. Yeah, probably doesn't breathe as well.
There's no breathing, and I've asked the guy in Canada, how do you help the moisture issue? Because he has no top holes, and he put this on in the top of the hive. It's sealed up.
Well,
But the guy in Canada over winter keeps all of his bees in a big giant shed.
But I also would testify that candy boards mitigate so much of your moisture issue. To have that over a candy board, I still wouldn't worry. There's air going to be coming in, and the candy board is there partially to absorb that moisture. So and there's so many people that say mold doesn't matter. I don't like to see it though, so it also go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, your last thing, what you got here?
So then this was also, there's many versions of this. It's a bee escape. And I am tired of shaking bees off honey supers and brushing the last couple off, and you see them roll, and some of them are okay, and then you see a few of them roll, and they hit the ground, and it's just a horrible, I mean, once you start getting enough supers, it's really a painful job. So I'm looking for an easier way. Same guy, Ian Stiefler up in Canada, he uses this escape in all his hives. The problem with escapes is, so you have your deep and a deeper, 1 or 2 deeps or whatever, and then you have 4 or 5 supers. Put this in, you have to take your supers off, put this in, and then
In
put your
between
put your supers back on. And the way this works is, the bees are all up in the super, they rotate throughout the hive all the time. So they will come down, hit the screen board, go in these little cones, come out these holes. They're down in the bottom, they can't figure out how to get back to the top. So it cleans out the super.
And how long do you think it takes? Like just one day or 2 days?
He says he does them for 2 to 3 days.
Okay. And so that's in preparation for pulling your honey.
Yep. And you need to put a couple extra empty supers below this so they have room, or else the deeps get all stacked up with deeps.
Okay, excellent.
So, and make sure your upper entrance, and also any cracks around your box. If you have cracks, you'll get robbed out.
Get robbed out.
So he uses like painter tape and tapes up all the cracks and slots around the upper end.
Where did you end up ordering that?
This I ordered from his vendor out in
You got
Canada.
another thing? Is this the Canadian Beekeeper? Is that his,
Yeah.
is it his name or is it something else? You're saying his name, but.
Ian Siegler. I think it may be the Canadian.
I think that's him.
It sounds right, I mean, because I remember seeing him use that oil.
Yeah, he
so
uses this, and I ordered from his
He's got his own little thing.
supplier
Yeah.
up in Canada.
Yeah, if it's
They
the
weren't
same,
very expensive, but the shipping was horrible.
if it's the same guy that puts all of his stuff into that giant shed, that is Canadian Beekeeper.
Yeah. There's several different versions of these escapes. There's another one, the Ontario escape, that has like a triangle on the
It looks like
bottom.
a maze or something.
And I saw a guy that's got 1,500 hives, and he uses these, so I thought, okay, I'll try this and see myself.
Very cool, thanks for bringing that. So anybody that has cool stuff and you want to bring it, we should do this frequently, because I know there's a lot of new stuff. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I got a couple of escapes last year that had the triangle, and I found that it takes a long time for
Really?
bees to just naturally find their way
So
out.
the triangle, how many outlets does it have? Because obviously, what's he got there, 12 or 10?
10.
Yeah, so I just wonder if it's a quantity thing.
Maybe, but also, I know that there are fume boards, and I don't know what people think about using fume boards. I didn't do that.
I have a fume board, I use it quite successfully, but.
Because that speeds it up, doesn't it?
It does, but you still literally have to stand there and wait for it to happen, where that, you can put it on and leave it and come back tomorrow, you know? So it just depends on how you need to manage your time and your hives.
The triangle ones, if you do when the weather's cool,
Yeah,
yeah, they basically get on one night.
in one night? Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's a fume board?
A fume board
I'm
looks.
only a couple year beekeeper, so
No,
I
no,
got
no,
so I don't know a lot of the stuff.
So the one I have looks like a telescoping
No,
cover,
it's
however, it's
all
not
good.
big enough to go over, it just sits on top, and the inside of it is full of felt, and you mist it with one of these products. The one I buy is called
Be away, be go.
Be Quick or Be Away, and you spray it in there. And it's covered with metal, so when you set it on, the sun hits the metal, heats that fume. The fume goes in, the bees are driven down out of the supers because, and the funny part is the one I use, Be Quick, I think smells gloriously like almonds or amaretto, and they hate it, and they leave. So, pretty funny. So, a fume board is just a chemical way to draw them down. Yes?
Tracy,
Yes, sir.
I tried to be gone, and kind of didn't, wasn't working.
With the
This
fume
past
board, you
year,
use it with the fume
Well, I
board?
got the bathroom. And he gave me this bottle of stuff called Robber.
Robber?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you this, don't ever buy a bottle of that stuff and use it.
Really?
Yeah, I put some on fume boards on my 5,000 can for automatic, take off.
Right.
I cannot get that smell out of my hive. That stuff is nasty.
Okay, so there's a negative recommendation on
I got
Robber.
it all down.
I'm just gonna tell
Some of
you.
those things smell worse than vomit.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm gonna tell you, Be Quick smells glorious. I'm like, I just wanna smell this stuff, I love it.
And I tried almond, I actually got actual
Almond oil?
almond extract.
Uh-huh.
It would work.
Yeah,
They didn't pay any attention
so
to it.
there's something in it.
It smells to us like almond, but not to the bees.
Interesting, good to know.
All of the smell cyanide also. It's cyanide.
I'll say something about the escape boards. One of the things that I do with escape boards and queen excluders, as far as that goes, is I paint the outside of my escapes red because I know I'm not
So you
supposed to
can
leave it
see
on
them.
there, and I paint the outside of my queen excluders green so I know how many hives. This one's got one, this one don't.
So important.
Can see them at a glance.
So, what an
You forget
important
it- you
thing
forget it
to
in the
do.
wintertime.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who've ever left a candy board on because you didn't realize it was there, and spring came and went, and you went out there and popped your outer cover off, there was glorious burr comb full of honey filling your candy board, and you had to pry it all off and throw it, get it out of there. And so, yeah, painting the outside is genius, so you can tell from far away what you have where. Susie, good to see you. All right, thank you so much. And please, anybody else who has cool stuff, bring it next month. We'd like to see that. So, The roundtable discussion for us tonight is simply to do just this. Ask your questions and hear from other beekeepers, and we'll try to keep it moving along in a timely fashion.
Tracy, an actual string of drawing honey out for people to pass around and look at.
Awesome.
And when you look at it, you study it. It's absolutely amazing that bees can do this.
It
For one
totally is.
thing, each cell is a hexagon.
But it's a hexagon on the outside and it's a circle inside.
On the inside. Sorry.
That's what to me is even more amazing.
Actually, sometimes
It is what?
And
And the cells do not meet back to back like this. They meet 1/3 off center for structural strength. It's just unbelievable that honeybees all over the world are doing that.
Up to the sun, it makes a peace sign.
Oh, yeah, because of that off center. Yeah, it's just amazing. Again, amazing. All right, so how many of you are in your first year of beekeeping this year? First year beekeeping. Oh, you're not the only one. Look, there's some other first year. There's some other first year beekeepers.
The first 2 years.
Okay, first 2-year beekeepers. Everybody just, okay, and you guys, you overwintered successfully, right? Anybody else in year 2? Well, sort of.
1 and 1.
1 and 1, that's okay. All right, so who's got questions? Who wants to go first? You got all the experts are back over there. Where's Barry? And there you go. Barry and John, there they are.
Be quiet.
Come on, guys. Nothing? Yes, sir.
Swarm season, when does that start?
Already did. John Scott has a picture of the one he collected today. How many people have had swarms already this year? Anybody? Is that it? You did? You think they left? How many people have collected a swarm, John Scott Foster?
They had one over at the Cincinnati Reds baseball game.
Did they now?
They seem to like baseball stadiums.
Interesting. I see a whole bunch underwater meter covers. On Instagram, they're always lifting these green municipal covers, and there's combo underneath. Not swarms, just hive filter.
At one of the ballparks, there's an usher that's a beekeeper.
Yeah.
And he keeps everything in his car.
I need to send him a hive butler, man. He didn't have one.
He just, when they came, and of course it started, and they were all around before they landed, and you could see the players kind of all freaking out, and they were hitting the dust, and they were doing everything, and they got him off the field, and he went out and got all this stuff and collected the bees, and it was like, it took a little bit, but it was a delay, but that's probably the 3rd or 4th one that's been on the news at ball fields.
So, John Scott, where do you put your phone number for people to call you if you want to collect swarms? I know there's lots of different places you need to think about getting your number out.
Oh, they don't want to do that. You know what, one of the things you can get registered on DNR has if you go on the, I don't know how to get there. I just know I got there, but I couldn't tell you how to get there. So if you go, DNR has a list that you can get your name and phone number on for swarms. And then, you know, there's that wonderful combination of Craigslist and Angie's List and Paranoia
I
called,
think you can also call
Next
your
Door.
local police department and tell them because they make those calls.
Beekeepers of Indiana has got a swarm catcher list too.
TBOI has one. I put
County Extension Office.
I put mine in at the Hamilton County Extension Office. If anybody can call there, honestly, just think about if you were a neophyte, knew nothing, who you would call if you saw swarm bees. Kind of think of that's where you would want to put your number if you're into collecting swarms, and who isn't. It's a $150 free set of bees. They're as easy to catch. John Scott, how easy are they to catch? It's like nothing. You just drop them in and you're good. I know, he's too busy talking. So was your question?
So my
What's
question.
more about swarms leaving than
I'd rather not have my swarm away. I had a huge hive last year, a big top bar that it was gorgeous, and I left it alone for a couple of weeks, and before I know it, it was about half the size.
So,
but it happens, but I'd like not that to happen again.
So looking back, you said you left it alone for a couple weeks. Always as spring begins, you have that early, if you have a good queen, that kickoff of brood population, and that's when, so it can be a combination of things. The huge uptick in population because she's laid a bunch of eggs, and And if they've brought in a bunch of nectar and they fill the empty comb with nectar, and then she's like, hey, there's nowhere to lay, then I think that sort of kicks that off. So I know Karen and I spent lots of time pulling out deep frames of nectar and whacking the nectar out, or actually taking it to the extractor and spinning them out to make sure there's empty comb. The idea that, oh, they'll move this nectar so she can lay eggs, yeah, no, that doesn't happen. So,
Give them room.
yes.
Yeah.
And if it's a great queen, I think in beekeeping, at least I always feel like in the spring, you're never caught up. Does anybody else feel that way? I feel like it's always, you have to have that equipment ready to go and get it out there as fast as you can.
So another question on that. So when it does start getting big and maybe there's not even a queen cell yet, but it's getting to the point where it's getting big.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple different ways. Either split it by taking the queen and some of her posse out, or just take some eggs out and make your own that way. Is there a preference either way?
You know, I think that you could probably get 10 opinions on that in the room, and certainly that's one thing we talked about, having nuke equipment available to you. So, or either one of those. I'm sorry?
I've got a new brain.
Okay, so Barry, you want to speak to that? What do you prefer?
As far as,
So do you just pull out the population of the brood frames and give her more space, or do you actually pull the queen and take her away and make a break?
I think I've been more successful if I can pull the queen.
That's technically the artificial swarm, where you're actually taking the queen.
And the whole thing with swarms, and you'll read about them, and there's a million different things to do, and try this and try that. If they're going to swarm, sometimes they're just going to swarm. It's actually a healthy thing for the hive to do. It's what nature's intended for them to do. I think the big thing is just don't get too caught up in, oh, my hive swarmed, because the best beekeeper in here, hive swarm.
Now,
So it's just part of beekeeping. There's things you can do and give them room and do artificial swarms and checkerboarding and adding supers, and sometimes they still swarm. I mean, like this year, it's rained and rained and rained, and I've given them all kinds of rooms, but I think they didn't have anything else to do but make queen cells. And so they just swarm.
I think that's one of the things that Mel Discipline talks about, because I think he says he never has swarms, but he has a very specific timeline about pulling the queen out, so that artificial swarm, you're letting them think that they swarm because you're removing her and some of the population. So he's going to teach that lesson at our sustainable apiary. But it was a big
Mel's got a different plan.
Absolutely.
He doesn't really manage for honey. He manages
absolutely. And I was gonna
making splits.
I was gonna agree with what Barry said. It was a big help to me as a beekeeper to understand that swarming is a natural thing, and it means nothing about you as a beekeeper, in so much as your hive is saying, hey, we're super healthy and successful, and we're going to go off and replicate ourselves. So,
I mean, Dave does a great talk here on the growing degree days and things you should do real early to help prevent swarming. And so there's a lot of different things to do that you can try to help prevent swarming. Sometimes they just have it in their mind they're going to swarm. So.
And Steve just said, and I always make myself feel so much better when I know that I'm helping repopulate the feral bees of Pennsylvania. That makes me feel like I've enriched the environment by sending my bees out there. So, you know what, it happens to everybody. But I'm sure there's about 50 different ways of going about it.
So near your property is a good place to put swarm traps.
Absolutely, and in fact, I hit one of my own swarms with my swarm bus one time. So driving down the road, and I saw it out there in the sky, and I'm like, I have hives right over there, and you know, I'm not going to crash the bus, and boom, hit it with the windshield, and I felt pretty bad about it.
Some days you're the bugs. Dave, 50 hives. How many of yours swarm? How many do you prevent?
I got 0 so far. So I've got.
Awesome.
I've had to be a little more proactive than I normally am, because it's been
because of the weather.
In my opinion, it's been one of the worst seasons for beekeeping that I've ever seen. As far as
but
just
when
the
you got
continuous rain.
Yeah, continuous rain
and the cold
and the temperatures dropping.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've never had chilled brood in May until this year.
Yeah. 39 degrees down. Yesterday morning, my thermometer said 39 degrees. Yesterday morning.
Nuts. That's why I'm moving, I'm out of
Tracy,
here.
one thing I think with warm people, if you're gonna do splits, make sure you have the equipment that you need.
Absolutely.
Never have.
And a lot of people get caught up in that, because they don't realize, this next couple of days, we're planning on doing a split. Well, I'm gonna split 2 hives at my house, and then go out and set up the split in another acre and a half, so I can change it back and forth.
Right.
Because that way there, when you have a virgin queen, there's drones that they'll mate with in the different acres, because they won't mate with the drones in their same acre. Well, so we're getting ready to do that. Well, okay, so I'm gonna do 4 splits, 2 here, 2 there. But you have to realize, real quick, that adds up, you need 8 boxes.
Right.
Which means you gotta have 4 lids, 4 bottoms, you gotta have all this equipment. You have to figure all that out before you go to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And making a plan when you're going out to the bee yards. I'm gonna get in my bees, I'm gonna check my bees. Well, really think about what do I need to take out there, what do I need to have on hand, and what am I gonna do when I get there? Don't just, I'm gonna wing it. Winging it is probably not the best for beekeeping. And I've tried it, so I'm good at winging it. Okay? Who's next? Okay, we've answered all the questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so you already gave me some tips on mine, but so I had 2 hives last year. They both didn't make it through the winter, which means I have, both of them have 2 deeps full, like 80% full of stuff. So, last
Full of
year. Drawn, and the top is full of honey.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's bee honey, because bee food, I can't harvest the honey. So here's my question. So last year when I was getting going, I added the deep every time it was 80% full, then okay, add another. Well, looking at it, it's kind of already that way, so really the bees just have to go and clean up.
Well, what do you mean? When you say it's already that way, when we said add a deep when it's 80% full, we meant 8 frames of bees with brood. So just because you have drawn comb doesn't mean it's full of bees. It's drawn comb. But are you pulling out the 8 frames and you see brood on both sides of 8 frames?
No.
Okay.
So brood, not just.
When you take, so you want a lot of, and David dive in here. So when you're taking the lid off and you look down, how many frames do you see all bees on? Are they on 4 frames? And then as you're going, then additionally you're looking at each frame, how many of those are 2 sides of brood?
Okay. And so should you had mentioned already to me, putting some brood in that top box, but should I put some empty frames in there also, so they have something to do other than, because otherwise it's honey and nectar or pollen.
So now you have 20 deep frames. You have 2 boxes of 10. So how many of those frames are capped over honey from last year?
What?
8. She's got a new hive that she's put using last year's frames, and she said a bunch of it was capped over honey from last year.
Yeah.
So I'm saying they're deep frames full of honey, capped honey.
Yeah.
And how many?
I got 2 deeps.
Right.
One for each of the hives.
You're calling the honey bee food, so you
Because
sugar fed them and
I
they
sugar
backfill.
fed them, and I also had treated them. I ate the barn, they're treated. So.
Right, but these aren't super full of honey. These are
It's
deep frames.
Full of honey.
And how many frames in each box are full of honey?
8 in 2 of them. The other ones are mostly
You have 16 frames of honey.
Yeah, 16 frames. Thank you.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I know.
So
I had one of my hives. They absconded in September.
And that's all good. That's
So
all
yeah,
good.
so it was just they left everything.
We're not going to waste it, but if she's so crowded that there's no room to lay because you got a bunch of capped honey in there, you're going to create a problem. So
what I would do, if you've got some of those white loop boxes or whatever, I pull 6 or, you can fit 5 in a box and pop those in the freezer, your honey in the freezer, and I would just bank those for the fall.
And you can mark that box honey food only, and you bank them for the dearth at the end of August or September when they got nothing.
Yeah. Yep. The bottom was mostly just it's mostly just pollen, you know, and it's
Right.
in the middle.
Altogether different.
Yeah, so I
Because
put them in there and they're going to town, but now I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna put the next one on top.
But I'm just telling you that idea that, oh, they'll move this to lay brood, that's not gonna happen. If those frames are indeed full of something, they're not available for your queen.
Especially if it's capped.
If it's capped, they're not available. So you need to be storing that safely to use at a later date,
6 or
or
8 or 6.
Well, how many ever your freezer can hold, and just save them away, and then
Typically,
you can
you're-
save them till October, and if you've got some
Absolutely.
empty frames, then pop those in for the winter.
Make a whole bunch of
I didn't know if
nukes.
they would eat it, I mean, 'cause
Yeah,
like,
you can use them for splits.
I'm not like feeding them sugar water or anything,
no,
I
there's
know, so I
plenty
didn't
out
know
there
if they would.
available.
Okay.
So they're probably really good right now. So your 2 outside frames on a deep box should be honey, because that insulates them. So those 2, but then going in, that should be brewed and available stores for them to utilize, not capped honey. Okay. Yes, sir.
So how should you arrange the deep frames going into the winter? Because what we had is they obviously starved from the bees were head down in, even though just one frame over, it was completely full.
And sometimes that is not anything you can prevent. So, David.
Well, you know, you gotta have honey on the outside, like she said. Sometimes I got 10 frames, so I go 2 honey,
On each side.
pollen, brood in the middle. Okay.
But the cold snaps that we've had late spring, I lost one in late spring that had made it all the way through, and then we got that cold snap. So when those cold snaps happen after it's been warm, wherever they cluster is where they cluster, and you can't orient things to prevent those momentary cold snaps.
Yeah, we survived the
Yeah,
The
I
first
lost
one, but not the second.
The only thing you can do is on a warm day, take a peek. There's
They seem to be on this side.
they're on this side, there's a frame between them and the honey. If it happens, if it gets too cold, they're not gonna make it. You move a frame to it. You cannot break the cluster, but you can move a frame
Something
of honey
closer.
to the cluster. Okay. Just take a quick peek, and you gotta be ready. You can't spend all day with the hive open with 30 degrees and then you can't do it. But you be ready. Have a frame of honey. Here you go, I got it. Now open the hive. Oh, this one's empty. Done.
Winter wax moths.
Winter wax moths do.
I've seen a lot already.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about her.
Oh.
Yeah, and robbing.
Yeah.
Right, robbing, so your honey makes your hive vulnerable to robbing. You have a little hive getting started, so you need to get those honey frames out. Yeah, wax moths, I love them.
Get some bees in that hive.
Well, she's working on it, she said they're
I mean,
going
they're,
great.
oh yeah, when I was putting it out, they were just like,
So, just give me a 2-minute little synopsis, tell everyone the difference this year of installing a package into drawn comb versus installing a package into brand new hive, comb-free, brand new frames.
So I had installed it, was it a week and a half ago on a Friday, and I waited to inspect it until yesterday, just because I was waiting for the rain and a nice sunny day. And yeah, there's already larvae, I mean, like nice and big, and there's just eggs everywhere. So
Drawn comb
she
can
already
make all the
had
difference.
4 or 5 frames,
Yeah.
you know, kind of packed. So
That drawn comb is very valuable. You need to protect it over winter. If your hive dead it out, don't leave it out there to be ruined by wax moths or varmints. Protect it, store it well, because it gives a huge jump start to any package. Okay? Next.
What if you don't know how old the comb is, but you know it's at least 4 years old?
Yeah, Kathleen is on the 3-year rotation. 3 years is what, and I even read recently on Instagram about a top bar guy, I talked to a top bar guy, and he said he tries to do that with his, to put the older ones at the way back, and as they move forward, throw out. So when they're black and can't, if
Black
you
and
know,
hard as concrete.
You know, start writing the year on the top of the frame.
Right.
Every
This
third
was
year.
put in, and put 19 on it. This was put in 2000.
And I'll tell you, when I build my frames, I do write the year on top, and I write the size on top, so I can tell if it's a medium that I stuck in a deep because I was in a hurry. And then I go back later and I don't really look down, so I write M and D.
It's drone control. You have to cut that.
I know, but sometimes I want it to be a
Line
deep.
control.
So.
You cut the drone off.
And And just remember, if you had a hive that died over winter, that does not mean you're a bad beekeeper. I think we've presented that multiple times. You can do all the right things and still lose your bees. All of them. So you can do all the wrong things and have bees survive. You know, it's crazy.
You be like me, I'm a real good bee getter, but I'm not a very good beekeeper.
Oh, I disagree with that. I disagree. It's a hard time to keep bees. Yes.
If you're gonna replace frames every 3 years, that means, in my mind, you're gonna take out built-out comb and you're gonna put in a new foundation.
Yep.
And is what I have some excess of is some white plastic foundation, or plastic foundation, that supposedly originally had wax on it, but is that enough, or should you do something additional to that?
I'm an anti-plastic foundation person, just because I have found it more difficult to use. My opinion quickly would be that I would recoat it with wax. You can never go wrong adding more wax to it.
And how would you do that?
Whenever I have bird comb, as I'm doing my hive inspections, I put that in an excess coffee can or a Tupperware bowl, and I collect it. I bought a little crock pot at Goodwill for $1. It's a little tiny one. And all I do is put wax in it, I plug it in, melt it down, and then I let it cool off and go solid till the next time I need it, I plug it in. So all my excess comb goes in there, and then I just paint it with a pastry brush and.
You paint it when it's liquid, right?
The roller brush works really well for that.
Roller brush, yeah. Whatever I use whatever you use is going to be ruined. My husband was not excited about that.
Can you just rub it on like a crayon?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be beautiful or neatly done, right? You saw what I did to your frames. I just pasted it on.
All your burr comb, make a ball out of it, just.
Yep, and just throw it in there. But you will never go wrong recoating.
They'll move it where they want it.
However, if you don't recoat it, my experience says they will ignore it or put it off till the last possible moment.
Or build real strings on.
Or be artistic.
But you're going to want to stagger when you swap it out, though.
Comb where you don't want it. Just comb that they built on the top, or you put in a medium and they built.
Okay.
Yeah, just any comb where you don't want it.
But you're going to want to swap the frames staggered. You don't want to swap them all at once.
Exactly.
Swap, let them build it out. Swap, let them build it out.
I'm sorry, one more thing, then my understanding is only young bees can produce wax. They need to be a certain age. So you need to have a good population growth happening when you're asking them to draw comb.
Right.
The other thing to remember is they have to eat 8 pounds of honey or supply to make wax.
Right.
So you feed when you're asking them to make wax.
Okay, so I recommend that everybody keep nukes going. Everybody keep nukes going. Put the nukes to work, making them draw you new comb.
There you go.
You switch it out,
Right.
and that keeps the nukes busy, and they're not thinking about trying to get out of that box, that 5-frame box. That keeps them busy, plus you get new comb for your production house.
And that does sound funny, but it is the honest to God's truth. They have to have something to do. If you've given them all 5 beautiful frames and drawn out a comb, they're just like, okay, well that was really fun, but we need to come up with a new plan. They need to be busy when you're holding them tightly.
Is the wax from the old frames, is that reusable, or do you still
It's challenging to get it out of old frames.
It is.
There is ways, it just has to be steamed out or pressed out.
The crock pot method.
Does the dirt settle out of it then?
It's mostly cocoon.
Yeah.
It doesn't melt well in the crock pot, I can tell you that.
You have to put it in water,
Yeah.
boil it,
I got
run through a
steamer. I steam mine for
it's work.
It is.
Yeah, you go through tons of deeps to be able to get just a little bit of wax.
I tend to, honestly, I just feel like I will do my part to buy more supplies.
Your volunteer at the state fair, pay $9 for the pound of wax, and then scrub it on there.
Got it.
That works, yeah.
You know, in the summer when the bees are bearded and they're all over the side.
The front,
Yeah, it seems to me like they're not doing anything. You know, they're just hanging around. Is that just my imagination?
No.
Temperature.
They're definitely doing something. They're removing themselves from the house to reduce that heat.
Well, I know, but if you give them
a little bit, prop the lid open a little bit.
It's air conditioning. They're trying to cool down the hive.
and themselves. Yeah, but in the meantime, they're not doing shit.
Yeah, but they typically only do it late in the day. I don't see them do it during the day. It seems to be a late day, evening thing. at
We have a
my
lot
house.
of workers who are coming back home,
Yeah.
and the hive's hot, so they're just gonna hang out and try to help cool the hive. But they can't, and they may not do that much.
Or properly live.
You got
Put
it.
more air in there.
How many people have screened inner covers? Screened inner cover. Are you happy with them? Do you use them a lot?
Inner covers, no, I know what you're talking about.
Screen inner cover?
I use them some.
Typically, it's been something in the south, but now that we're having more heat, I think they're moving up here a little bit more.
I got them from when we used to buy Hives from Berndt.
Oh, yeah.
And 10 of those guys would make the screen cover for them.
Uh-huh.
And when I ran out of inner covers, I started using them. So it's when I ran out of equipment, I started using.
Do the bees clog it up with
A little
wax?
bit, a little bit. But I don't notice really any difference.
You can also get screened ventilation shims that you can put above the supers.
Ed? Oh, I thought you were saying something.
And if bees run out of something to do, they'll wash for them.
Yeah, nobody knows what that is. Nobody
Yeah,
knows what that
There's
was.
some really good research.
Yeah.
In spite of reading all those research papers and everything, they still don't know.
They still don't know, yeah. Spend a lot of money trying to figure it out.
They think they're spreading footprint pheromones.
Oh,
to
please.
make- No, seriously, to make location easier and cleaning, and there's all kinds of things they
Nice.
attribute that to, but
Okay.
they still don't know exactly what.
Yeah.
But, you know.
And that's one of the things I love about it. Did you have a question?
She said she had a lot of extra frames, deep frames that were
Cap
full of
honey.
honey.
Yes.
Is that extractable?
Not for her, now she can take it out of that, she can extract it out of that, but she has to feed it right back to the bees.
She had it in when she had Apivar
I'll
on.
tell you, so she had Apivar on it. That's why she's not going to eat it. But I've tried to extract honey that's been in over the winter, and it's pretty tough. It's crystallized a little bit, and it just doesn't spin out well. It's kind of not worth the effort. And I have a nice motorized extractor, and it just wasn't coming. We ended up feeding it back to the bees. It was just easier because once it's freezed and once it's freezed.
Once it's done freezed.
Thank you.
Some of my hives I had down in Louisiana over the winter, which I didn't have as much success as I hoped to have, but some of them I bought back were dead, and I had to clean out my dead house.
Right.
Well, I was asking Dave a while ago, I got 7 frames of honey, and on purpose, I left it out in my apiary here in Indiana with my survivors here to see what the bees would do.
Sure.
Well, here's the trick. If your bees won't eat that honey, you don't want to eat it. The bees would not even fly over to that honey.
Do you think it's just because there's plenty of stuff to eat?
Well, I put them in a deep chest freeze, okay? And when I did, there's some little white wormy looking things come out of that honey while they were in the freezer.
Small hive beetle, David's saying.
Yeah.
Small hive beetle larvae,
Yeah,
they
were
slime
infected.
it under
So
the
if-
capping.
If you get small hive beetles and they go in your honey, you cannot extract it. It's just, it's run, it's
It's
destroyed.
slime. If you remove the caps, you would see the slime, is that?
You smell it.
Ew, gross. Okay, well, there you go, another fun. Nice. Yes.
What's the best way to feed it back to the bees? Like you have it capped over like she does.
Scratch
You,
the caps off.
We raked
scratch
it.
just
We
rake
raked it, yeah.
You put it back in and
Yeah,
then
we raked it and took it out in deeps and just set them on a pallet, and they could get up underneath it and
just let
rob it out.
If you're gonna
And we
open feed though, don't you wanna do that away from
set
your
that,
hives?
and we set them on a pallet wherever, like a community feeder, away from everybody. but
You don't
we
want to
raked them
encourage
open.
robbing.
Drawing in yellow jackets, food.
Well, yeah, it depends on the time of year, certainly, yeah.
I put some honey that I harvested earlier in the year to feed my hives late in the year. And I just put it in the pint bottles and the little feeder, and that worked fine. It
Yeah.
worked fine clear into the winter.
Good, good deal, nice. Nice. Yes, sir.
Another trick I heard for in the spring is to put out yellow jacket traps.
Yes.
And you can capture your yellow jacket queens, and your yellow jacket population will be.
So will a yellow jacket trap, bees can't get in it?
No.
Oh,
they're not attracted to it either because
Really?
it's a rotting meat smell.
Yeah.
Oh,
It will
nice.
also take in wax mold.
It
The same
will?
trash that you put in for yellow jackets will trap yellow.
A
I did this
win-win.
last fall, believe me. These yellow jacket trash, that the fat bee man tells you how to make and what to put in there, them suckers work.
Okay, good
I've
to
had
know.
people that had problems, one of the first things, they call you out, put in a bee bomb, get out there and yell at them.
Yeah, because I was always afraid to get those jar traps because I thought honeybees would get in them. But it's a different lure, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
Good
Good to know, okay.
One of the things we do as beekeepers, we're all guilty of this, but listen carefully. We wait till we see 10,000 yellow jackets in our hives, and then we say, oops, I better start trapping them.
Right, yeah.
Well, start now.
Right.
And in fall, you won't have 10,000.
That's what I'm saying, you're always
What he's trying
behind.
to say.
You're always behind. Do you feel like, how long have you been keeping bees?
I got my first hive in 1969.
Do you feel like you have a process of when you do things that is maybe not written down, but in your mind, you know, I need to do X, Y, and Z at this time in the early spring? Because I feel like I need just a notepad to tell me, okay, I gotta do this, or I can't remember.
I'm developing that, but one of the things that concerns me more than anything, and I don't know if it's global warming or something, you can't do things like you used to in a certain.
Well, no matter what the cause, weather changes. It always changes, and we don't have to discuss why, but it always does. But there's still a sequence to spring going into summer, whether that happens in March or June. I'm just saying, how do you keep that straight in your mind that I need to have my supers on
I
at
keep
this?
it straight on my mind. I write it down, that way I've got my checklist. You know?
Anybody else keep a checklist, or y'all just making it up?
Winging it.
The Brazil club that we visited, they have a calendar that has like each month.
You should be doing X.
January, and it's got a list, and it's got place for notes and other things that you can write. And it's rather inexpensive, obviously they put it together, but we got a sample of
I
that.
feel like I have so many things going on, I do better. If I just have a list, that would help me, I think.
There's a lot of online resources for Beekeepers calendar of this is the sequence.
So
It's
you're
gonna be
saying I'm
it'll be
just
different.
not
Look,
studious
Google.
enough.
Google.com. It's on the interwebs.
You can buy a t-shirt from TBOI like Mr. Adcock has.
Oh, look at that!
It tells month by month what day.
That means you have to have somebody help you.
Post a picture of Terry's back on the Facebook page.
Maybe you can't follow
Oh, all right. Any other burning questions?
Dave, you got your first hives in 1969.
Yes, sir.
What's the oldest series of survivor stock that you have? How long have you had it?
I've had stock. I've got stock now that I've had in 2012.
Nice.
So I had a really beautiful queen back then.
Are you a queen pincher?
I am.
You are?
I'm still carrying that line with me.
Okay.
Do you pick queen every year?
I do. I raise queens. I've drafted twice this week.
And you do it every late summer?
July.
In July,
Mid-
so
mid
that
to late
you have a
July.
young queen going into winter.
Yeah, so I've got a young queen
And
going in
what's
there.
your-
If you do it in July, if you make a mistake, you got time to fix it in August.
And what's your overwinter rate?
This year was probably 22 survivors out of 25.
Nice, very
But for the
nice.
past 5 years, the first year I lost any since 2015.
Nice.
For those of us that don't graft and race, what would you recommend? How many years is, that those of us that aren't gonna do annual, what would you say?
What's the sweet spot? Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
As far as what, replacement?
Yeah.
They don't replace themselves.
I replace mine annually, yearly, but 2 years, after 2, I would.
That's pretty much the math.
I would give serious consideration. One of the issues is queens aren't queens aren't mating, no, that's probably wrong. I think there's some big issues with the drone sperm being affected by miticides and
The pesticide load.
pesticide load, things that beekeepers use, things that queen breeders use. And I mean, you can keep a queen, she'll live 3 or 4 years if you
But
take
that
care of her, but
efficacy.
she's gonna be bad.
Right.
And by the 3rd year, she's gonna be bad. I mean, it's gonna look like a shotgun, you know.
And that's when you get
So
to
You're
the
saying
drum.
2 years max and then.
I would max out at 2, but I like I said, I replace mine every
You're
July,
not buying them.
and sometimes in August. In case you don't have a queen that's accepted, you got August to fix a mistake that you made in July. That's what I'm saying, you know.
Awesome. So it is 8:30. I think we need to wrap this up. I really appreciate everybody's commentary. I think we should do this more frequently. There's a lot to be learned there. Are we pulling tickets now?
Did everybody like this?
Yeah.
Good.
I did.
You wouldn't close your mouth. You and Barry over here chatting the whole time.